All Elite Wrestling was created on January 1st, 2019. It was founded by none other than lifelong wrestling fan Tony Khan, along with some of the top stars in the independent scene, Kenny Omega, Cody, the Young Bucks, and Brandy Rhodes. They were set on making a true and legit alternative for the pro wrestling fans everywhere. They were set to bring a revolution to the professional wrestling world. Along the way, they were able to get people like Chris Jericho, Adam Page, Britt Baker, and the Best Friends, some of the hottest acts in the independent wrestling scene. They also brought in people who were rising stars with an abundance of potential, such as Riho, Sammy Guevara, Hikaru Shida, Kip Sabian, and Darby Allin. The stage was set. AEW was a legit brand of professional wrestling, and they would bet on themselves after such a successful indie show at All In, and they would go Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing had the whole wrestling world talking. Could this really be the second brand of professional wrestling? After that glorious Saturday night, AEW submitted themselves as a legit competitor. They ended the show with quite possibly the biggest name to hit the free agent market in professional wrestling in quite some time. They closed it with Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose. Adding Moxley was huge for AEW, but it came with its bumps. Moxley got MRSA, which hindered his abilities to wrestle at that time. AEW, however, they built up a massive match to finally determine who was going to be their top guy, who would take center stage October 2nd in front of the whole world on TNT. Who was going to be the face of the company? The stage was set. Chris Jericho would go up against Adam Hangman Page, the Cowboy, at All Out. Jericho went on to that match as a heavy favorite. Hangman, not so much. Jericho ended up beating the Hangman, and he established himself atop of the fastest rising brand of professional wrestling. Not only did Jericho solidify himself as the guy, but he aligned himself with the group known as the Inner Circle, which included Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. The Inner Circle wasn't here to see eye to eye with the Elite. Rather, they actually wanted to hypothetically delete the Elite. Jericho, the leader of the Inner Circle, and Cody, the face that ran the place, were on a collision course for Full Gear. If Cody was to lose to Jericho, Cody would no longer be able to challenge for the AEW Championship. Meanwhile, SCU became the first tag team champions by upsetting the Lucha Brothers, and Riho became the face of the women's division by defeating Nyla Rose. But then we finally approached Full Gear. With the chip on Cody's shoulder and a dastardly MJF in his corner, we all sat with bated breath on that Saturday, November 9th. I think we all thought MJF was playing his former mentor. But at the end, MJF threw in the towel to stop the suffering of Cody at the hands of Chris Jericho. But after the match, MJF furthered the disappointment of that night, and he gave Cody a low blow. That made it clear, two men on two separate paths. Jericho and Cody. MJF would go on to feud with Cody and make a myriad of demands in order for Cody to get his retribution on the self-proclaimed salt of the earth. But that wasn't all MJF had in mind. He introduced us to his Wardlow, the monster of a man out for blood. Meanwhile, Jericho, he was having to defend off Jon Moxley. Both feuds were set to end at Revolution. Revolution was unknowingly the last pay-per-view for AEW with fans in maximum capacity attendance. Revolution was a great night. We got a great tag match, some might even say the best match of all time, between two frenemies who beat SCU for the championships in Hangman and Kenny against their elite counterpart, the Young Bucks. We got to see the second champion in the women's division, Nyla Rose, beat Chris Statlander, an up-and-coming star within that division. We were all mesmerized by a lazy dude who kept putting his hands in his pockets when he fought Pac, one of the most elite performers in the world. We sat there and we went through the emotions of seeing Cody, our favorite guy, lose to the young and mean Maxwell Jacob Friedman. But at the end of the night, we all forgot about that and we moved on to celebrate Jon Moxley as our second AEW champion. Then the pandemic struck. Fans, they were no longer allowed to attend the shows, but that didn't stop AEW. They arguably stepped up to the plate and made sure we all had an outlet during these rough times. They made an inaugural tournament which concluded with the Murderhawk Monster, Lance Archer, and Cody, where Cody finally won a championship in AEW, and we got to see the debut of one of the most iconic stars in wrestling history in Matt Hardy. We saw a missed opportunity turned into a treasure with Brody Lee. We got to see two of the best tag wrestlers in the world solidify AEW as the undisputed best tag team division in the world. We even got to see some new up-and-comers in wrestling through the TNT Open Challenge. We even got to see Warhorse. We even got to see a platform for the women to showcase their talent. We saw Tay Conti, Anna Jay, Ivelisse, Diamante, and Big Swole solidify their names as legit stars to be reckoned with. The women's division was looking very promising following the tournament, and one of these women will be the breakout challenger for Shida. But before we get there, we can't forget, after a long summer with fans not there, fans were finally allowed to return in minimum capacity, but fans were able to attend All Out. Quite possibly the biggest show for AEW. At All Out, we got to see Lance Archer eliminate Eddie Kingston to become the number one contender for the AEW Championship. We saw Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa elevate the women's division to the next level. We saw how unprepared Colt Cabana was to be Brody Lee's right-hand man. We got to see FTR pick apart Hangman Page eventually in order to strip the titles away from the depleting friendship between him and Kenny Omega. We even got to see Orange Cassidy end a 12-week feud against the first AEW champion, Chris Jericho, and he won, making himself a legitimate main event player. And then MJF lost due to a cheat in the system when Moxley went against his own signature on the contract that stated he would not use the paradigm shift. But that's not where things ended in year one, because in the final weeks approaching the anniversary on the fallout of All Out, we got to see quite possibly the biggest missed opportunity in professional wrestling, Miro, make his AEW debut. Miro, formerly known as Rusev, became elite. But year one, I would say, was a success. Tony Khan, he seems to know what he's doing. And that's why I'm all in with All Elite Wrestling.